Oh my word, guys, this is a big update in terms of balance notes. It is like a textbook out there. I managed to get through it as quickly as possible. I tried to do as much as I could with the time that I had. I had to cut some things kind of short, otherwise I would have been here for 3 or 4 years. But regardless, we're going to go through the entire set of update notes, talk about the changes. I also want to hear what you guys think in the comments below. I'll see you soon. Hey guys, what's up? I know I usually have a camera on this, but I'm pretty ill today. But I wanted to make sure I got these update notes out for you guys. So let's have a look at this. We've kind of gone through Magnus in my other video, which I'll link in the description. These are his talents. Arcane Mark lasts longer. Arcane Mark is not consumed when basic attacking a marked target, and Magnus passively gains attack speed. That seems broken. And all ability cooldowns are reduced upon hitting an enemy with it. Wow, that also seems broken. So his legendary and his purple seem pretty good, and honestly his rare's a bit meh. These are the skins. New hats, new pings. This is the inventory bit. Events and game modes. ARAM. All random, all middle, formerly Battle Royale, and that's on the 5v5 map. Okay, so they're moving over the Battle Royale to the 5v5 map. 5 versus 5 on Halcyon Fold. That seems hilarious. And 1 for all, where you play all of the same hero. I'm assuming some heroes are banned for that, like Arden, for instance. And the winter map comes back. New Battle Pass, instant resume on gameplay, which is huge. Basically means if you get knocked out a game, you can get back into it more quickly. And your rank will reset deeper than before next season, so you'll go back a lot further. Hero Mastery, which I'm supposing you guys are wondering what the stars above people's heads were. Or, sorry, above the hero portraits were in the hero screen. Hero Mastery is just showing you how adept you are at a certain hero. You just get stars. I think they can expand this much more than it is already, but it is a good step in the right direction. So these are the general meta changes, but I think I can do them over here on this one as well if I go down there. Okay. Reflex block visual effect stays up for its full duration. Item effects are more attached to heroes, so you'll be able to more easily understand when items are being used by what hero. Fixed a bug where certain abilities that fire multiple shots in a single direction could incorrectly fire them in different directions. Okay. I'm guessing that's things like Samuel. Fixed some cases where lane minions would stand on top of each other. Great. Fucking hated that. Sorry guys, didn't mean to swear. I absolutely hated that. Baron's Porcupine Waters now correctly deal reduced damage to minions. Small nerf to Baron. Ringo's Spike Brew talent now properly affects the damage of Hellfire Bruised Burn. Nice. That's a talent. Heroes whose basic attacks were intended to be crystal damage no longer have base 10 weapon power. That 10 extra damage has been moved to the crystal damage of their basic attack. This affects Celeste, Meline, Lyra, Varia, and Lorelei. So there's no base weapon power, it's all CP now. Fixed the bug, that's kind of a small buff, if in a way, if you're going for things like Broken Myth, kind of a small buff. I don't know actually, it doesn't really make that much difference. Fixed a bug where Inara could use her perk to jump to treants and marked heroes while immobilized. Okay. Lorelei's empowered Waterfall ult granted more barrier than it intended to. Fixed a bug where Churnwalker wasn't resetting hook and chain. Blackfeather's Fate of Heart no longer incorrectly claims to have 150% weapon ratio. 5v5 role selection has been updated. Healing treants have been renamed to Barrier treant. Barrier treants are now coloured white instead of green. Fixed an issue where the backdoor barrier on turrets didn't disable when minions were in range. Okay. The build path selected the ARAL lobby. Fixed a bug where infusion is sold for full price. Okay. These can now trigger ability effects. Samuel's B, which means things like Frostburn, can be triggered by Samuel's B, Rona's C, and Churnwalker's B and C. So a Frostburn on a Churnwalker, especially with some of the Churnwalker changes, seems pretty hilarious. Now reduce damage to epics and minions. Celeste's ultimate now will not be a great or as good of a dragon or Kraken stealer. No longer triggers ability effects. Saw A, Lance C, and Catherine A. I'm trying to work out what this means. I am assuming that the basic attack after still triggers the ability effects. Otherwise, that is a massive nerf for Catherine, especially with the Aftershock build. I assume that the hit still counts as a basic attack, but if that doesn't trigger ability effects, then and this doesn't work on the first hit with Aftershock, that is killing these guys with their Aftershock builds, but I'd have to test it. Debuff may now be blocked, the Silvernail Beal and the Anchor A, so you can block Anchor's dagger, meaning that she can't jump to you, which is cool. Travel speed bonus. No longer cancels upon attacking enemy heroes. Lockout time increased from 3 to 4 seconds. Okay, so that makes tier 2 boots broken. Definitely buy tier 2 boots early in your build. That's insane. That is actually insane. Tier 2 boots, insane. Ranged lane minion shots are faster. Okay, whatever. Decreased ambient gold range, 14 to 10. Increased treant heal duration. So this is trying to stop someone just like walking out of the lane slightly and grabbing jungle gold and coming back, or someone just walking into the lane and grabbing gold and running away. It's supposed to make sure that you are right next to that thing being taken, so you're actively participating in getting the gold, not just passively taking the ambient gold. Increased barrier, increased bounty gold. Minimum bounty is down. First blood bonus is up. Bounty increased per kill. So there's more comeback gold available, but there's also a bit more gold available for the first blood too. So it also means you have to be more careful when you're ahead as well, because if you give up more gold, which is a massive swing. 5v5 meta. No longer cancels upon attacking enemy heroes. That's insane. Especially for Finn and Lorelei. Like Finn and Lorelei, like Finn in a river team fight, that the river movement speed buff no longer cancels upon attacking enemy heroes. Broken. Like unbelievably broken. Like Finn could just run up and down the river, run straight to the backline, quibble, run for great positioning on his B. And also depends on which way you're fighting. Like if you're fighting and you're the ones aggressing towards Black Claw or Ghostwing from the middle lane, and the enemy is forced up and away. I mean, that just seems crazy. That just seems crazy. But I think it'll be a more aggressive 5v5 map now for sure. All boots actives are slightly faster. So that means you're a bit faster in the early game, and it will stay in that like that into the late game. So really putting emphasis on your ability to reposition this update. Increased minions tankiness early game. Okay, so basically they're really trying to make it that you don't leave the lane. That you don't leave the lane on 5v5. Basically saying it's harder to clear that first wave of minions, so that you can't just clear the wave and go to the jungle like you would have done previously. All jungle camp tankiness is increased. Basically saying that if you want to go into the jungle and duo jungle, you're going to miss more lane. You're going to miss more minions in lane. So that they are really trying to separate out gold income from the jungle and the lanes. And this is really pushing it down down that way. My only issue with this is that it's going to make certain junglers either require Stormguard banner, or you have to be a jungler that is just going to be able to clear things by themselves. Decrease ambient gold from jungle monsters and increase ambient gold from lane monsters. So it's essentially trying to make captains who stay in lane get more gold. But if you're trying to share the jungle, you're going to get significantly less gold. I mean, this is a massive nerf to the gold that you get shared in the jungle. Essentially trying to say, junglers, take your jungle by yourself, and if it's convenient, go and take the jungle, but you can't duo jungle because you're just going to lose much more gold. I actually think this update, if you try and duo jungle, you will lose more gold than you would gain if you were just sitting in lane. So I think if this actually works, it's really good for the meta. Jungle spawns earlier. Again, there you go. Goal is to create a meaningful choice between clearing minions or taking and helping jungle. That choice is basically these jungle camps spawning earlier means that you will miss the first wave. Like, you absolutely miss the first wave if you try and take a jungle camp. Also means the jungler can't come help you push the first wave because they'll miss early jungle clear. Well, they can, but you know you're just going to end up missing early jungle clear. Increased turret local bounty to 300. Vein Crystal no longer gains damage reduction from armories. Okay, but the health has gone up to 20,000. Jungle respawn. Normal camps up. Guardian camps up. Big Bear gold up. Gold Oaks gold down. Bounty per farm increased to 3. So you get a bounty for the amount you're farming as well. And bounty on 3 per farm up to 5. So you could get, say you've got 100 CS. That is going to be 300 gold. You've got 100 CS in 5v5, that's 500 gold. And that's your bounty. I think if you haven't been killed and you have that farm, that's your bounty. which is good because some people get ahead just by farming really heavily, and so this helps people who are good in like 1v1s and really good at taking trades, but maybe not as good at farming, can punish people who just want to farm all the time. Right, heroes. Verse of Judgment, damage up, fortified health down. I think trying to make the sort of the tanky... Oh, fortified health in the early game up, but down in the late game, damage up across the board. Actually, I would say this is a net buff for Adagio. And especially since it's base damage up, this actually helps the Captain Adagios be way more impactful because it's base damage and it's not really about scaling here. Even though fortified health is down by 100 in the late game, it's up in the early game. And it's a 300 damage buff on his first ultimate. So level 6 Adagio now is going to be really strong. His ultimate is something you will have to respect, even if he doesn't have that much CP behind him. Anchor, Shimmerblade, cooldown up. Ooh, up until you overdrive it. And the range is scaling. And scaling, 3rd level it gets better. Okay, so because you often max B first, this means that your range is going to be slightly hampered until the 2nd level it becomes the same, from 8.25 down to 8. So until you get your 2nd point in her A, you're not going to start to feel any difference, and then it scales up more linearly instead of this weird scale that they had going here. But you know, once you max it, which some people generally tend to do because of the range increase, then you might find that it's no different. The funny thing is that the 4th point, 0.5 over where it was before, means you might be able to max your C instead of your A, and you still have that viable range on it. So this changes Anchor's build path potentially, depending on what you want, but this is overall a massive nerf to her Shimmerblade in the early game. Although, let's be fair, how many Shimmerblades did you get off in a fight? Usually you were looking for a reset anyway. So when you look at the cooldown of Anchor's Shimmerblade, you're not that bothered overall because you're always looking to get a reset immediately after going in anyway. So I don't know if this cooldown changes much. The range changes are more interesting, but they don't really have too much impact across the board. This is not a nerf, not really a net nerf for Anchor, honestly. I don't think this is the nerf that Anchor needed, because a good Anchor and Anchors that know how to play her, 12 seconds means nothing because it really only counts about the first Shimmerblade that you hit, and then you're looking for an immediate reset. This will punish people who miss their Shimmerblade a lot. I think that's about it. Oh, we've got some more nerfs. Well, here we go. For some reason I thought this gap meant the end of Anchor. Cooldown is down on Dance of Blades, but the damage is also down across the board. 4 seconds from 5.5, but you've only taken 30 damage off. I mean, overall, if you're in an extended team fight, you're probably going to end up doing more damage with Dance of Blades. That is not really that much. I mean, I max Dance of Blades first usually anyway, and getting an overdrive 1.5 second cooldown reduction on it is pretty good. Like base 1.5 second cooldown reduction is pretty solid. Also reduces your need for Aftershock, for instance, because Aftershock got nerfed, so it reduces your need for Aftershock overall. And means you could probably just live off Halcyon charges. I mean, that's all right. That's not bad. I mean, the damage going down is whatever. Mirage cooldown is down. Up early game, down late game. Initial damage is up and down late game. Return damage is up early game and down late game. Just trying to limit her late game potential. Her damage across the board seems to have been nerfed, but her cooldowns are up. So it's going to reward proper management of your cooldowns. It means you'll be a bit more flexible in what you can and can't do in the late game, but you will have to be concerned that your damage has gone down across the board. Not enough so that I think it's going to have a major impact. I still think Anchor's going to be really strong. So I definitely don't think you can say that Anchor's not going to get banned next update. But yeah. Arden Gauntlet. Damage up, but crystal ratio down. Who was building Crystal Arden? Ever? That's my question. This for me is just a buff for Arden. And they've not changed anything to do with his Blood for Blood or anything to do with his Vanguard. So weapon power Arden is probably still going to be a thing. And no one was really building Crystal Ratio Arden. And so this is just a net buff for Arden, especially in the early game. That level 6 ultimate is going to feel much more impactful with 150 damage increase on it. So this is basically a buff for Arden. Porcupine Mortar Crystal Ratio, oof. Down by 40%. That's going to hurt CP Barons a lot. Cooldown is up on his ultimate. The energy cost is changed. I mean, up in the late game, but down in the early game. The damage in the center is up, the base damage, and the crystal ratio is nerfed. This is a massive gut, a massive gutting to CP Baron. I never thought CP Baron was super OP. I know a lot of people in Southeast Asia always say that they hate CP Baron and they see him a lot, but this guts CP Baron. I mean, really, they really gut CP Baron. I mean, doesn't matter about this 100 damage increase, no one cares. It's these crystal ratios that made CP Baron really powerful, and this kills the Baron. This kills the CP Baron. Blackfeather. I need to get a drink. This is like a history book of changes. I just got my drink because I know I'm going to need it. Blackfeather, Faint of Heart. Base damage is all weapon. Focus cost is up, but the execute damage on overdrive is 25%. 25%. Yeah, you max B and you max A on Blackfeather now. And weapon power Blackfeather seems to be coming back. Focus, on point focus cost down on overdrive by 20. And the regeneration on hit up by 40. So it's basically free. It's free real estate if you hit your on point, if you overdrive it. The barrier is up across the board. Rose offensive charge time down. Recast cooldown down to 0.2 seconds across the board. Focus cost in the late game down to 20. And the cooldown down to 20. And bonus damage up by 50. God, what the hell do you overdrive on Blackfeather? Christ. Do you even overdrive is on point? The cooldown, I mean, I guess you look at the cooldown, the execute damage on that is so strong, but then the focus cost of this and the cooldown going down to 20 is insane on overdrive. I think you can't pass up the 25% execute damage. You can't pass that up. And then overdriving on point is one of his main ways of poking. I feel like you max B and max A, but there is probably situations where you might want your Rose offensive more often versus lots of CC, and this could be an overdrive, but there's going to be a lot of testing. I think you max B and max A. I mean, you definitely max A because you can't pass up on the 25% execute damage. That's insane. Then it's between maxing B and maxing C. If you're more defensive, you max B and max C. If you're more aggressive, you max B and max A, I think. We'll see. But this is like, Blackfeather's like insane, this update. Blackfeather is like, especially weapon power Blackfeather, absolutely insane. Absolutely insane. Wow. Yeah, you need Blackfeather. You need Blackfeather in your life. Blast Tremor damage is up and crystal ratio is up. So Catherine got a buff. Okay, interesting. They're buffing the base damage of all Captain ultimates. I didn't see too many people build CP Catherine, but this maybe helps. This helps her Aftershock build a little bit. But then, has the Aftershock build been culled because of her A not proccing on hit effects? Difficult to tell. Difficult to tell. We need to do some testing. Catherine's CP build path is dead if Aftershock no longer procs with her A, because that's the only good thing about Catherine, unless you basic attack afterwards. But it would have to do some testing on it. This is decent for her though. Churnwalker, hook and chain damage down, torment damage down, up, crystal ratio to 80%, and trespass crystal ratio up to 100% with the damage going up as well. So I think he has a 1% CP ratio on his chains as well. I mean, I don't think this is a meme, right? Like, I don't think anyone's going to be building CP Churnwalker, but you actually have like a decent amount of burst if you went for something like a Shatterglass or a Frostburn. This could actually be worth it to go Frostburn on Churnwalker. It could be really oppressive to play Churnwalker with Frostburn with these crystal ratios. It feels like a meme to me though. I still feel like you're not really gonna be playing much CP Churnwalker, but it's something to test out, and I think it'll be fun. Flickr Mooncloak, stealth duration down, good, because Flickr's Mooncloak was dumb. Don't know if that's going to be enough. It's 4 seconds across the board, which in the early game especially is nice, and in the late game is only going to be the same as a level 1 ultimate, but still 12 seconds is a long stealth duration. Grace Holy Nova damage up in the early game. Okay, so it makes it more impactful when you take it at level 1, basically. That's nice. Not enough to make Grace game-changingly broken, but it's nice. Grumpjaw, damage up on his A. Hangry is now crystal damage. And its damage is 120, so maybe the the CP Grumpjaw with Aftershock is going to work better now. Because Hangry being crystal damage, it means you can't overload a weapon power Grumpjaw and have damage dealt with his B, but now you can go CP Grumpjaw and maybe make use of the Aftershock Broken Myth and you actually do a little bit more damage with Hangry. And stuffed damage is up across the board as well. So a nice buff for Grumpjaw. I already thought he was okay. Grumpjaw probably won't be broken, but he'll definitely be fairly strong. Damn, Jules got some changes. Rocket Leap, come on, Keenan. Rocket Leap is no longer a knockback, it's a slow. The slow strength goes up with level. The edge damage is increased. Thunderstrike is crystal ratio is up and weapon ratio is down. Big red button cooldown up, damage per second up base, and 150% CP ratio knocked right off her ultimate. Put a bit more into her Thunderstrike. Essentially, and I actually, do you know what? I know CP dual mains will disagree. I actually like this change. I thought this, in 5v5 especially, was the most oppressive ability I've ever played against in some instances. If you got it stuck in a choke point area on the map, and you got hit with a big red button, that was your game over as a carry sometimes. I love this change. I actually think this makes her all-in potential much better. It means that they don't get knocked away from her Thunderstrike, and you slow everybody. You can set up team fights really nicely with her A, and the edge damage also going up means you're a bit more rewarded for going in. The crystal ratio on her Thunderstrike just means she just needs to be a bit more patient about where she's going to start hitting people, and just need to make sure you're a bit more accurate with your B, and then you're not relying solely on your ultimate. I don't know why they did that though. Maybe they tested a hybrid duel was just too strong, or they felt that they took 20% from the weapon and put it on the crystal. Don't think that was totally needed though, personally. But yeah, this is pretty insane. Pretty insane nerf, especially in the late game. You might actually find it in the early game with these two changes here compared to these two. She might actually be equivalent, especially at level 1 ultimate, but in the late game, that's only a 40 damage buff in the late game and a 150% CP nerf. Like late game CP dual big red button is going to be brokenly, sorry, not brokenly. It's going to be pretty bad now. Early game, you might not notice too much difference though, so we'll see. Alright, let's have a look at Kensei. Basic attack down, but his barrier is percentages back up, and the Lotus Strike recast duration is up. That's actually a pretty big nerf to his base weapon power, but when you get more weapon power, you're going to start to get more of a tanky barrier again. So they're trying to make it, I mean, he sucks even more in the early game now. I mean, Kensei's early game is utter garbage, but this might make him viable in the late game once you get to a certain amount of weapon power. Energy cost on Glimmer Shot down, area damage up, but crystal ratio cut by 1/3. Basic attack damage ratio up in the late game, but the bonus armor pierce is removed. I don't even know if that's worth it. This guts the CP Kestrel. I don't know why, but this gut. I mean, I never thought CP Kestrel was super oppressive. Maybe it is in lower elo, but that kills the CP Kestrel. This also kills the CP Kestrel. And this also kills the CP Kestrel. Well, that's all I need to say about Kestrel. The CP Kestrel is killed. Pouncy Fun and maybe Weapon Power is okay. Weapon Power, bonus armor pierce removed is pretty bad for Weapon Power, but this might make a difference. 125%. You probably play Kestrel as Weapon Power only now. Her CP ratios have just been gutted. You have to snowball like crazy to make this worth it, and if you're not a really good snowballing CP Kestrel player, you're not even going to do as well on the snowball. This just kills the CP Kestrel. Pouncy Fun cooldown down and damage up. I mean, Koshka was okay. I think she's strong on 3v3, just trying to make her a bit more viable. Deadman's Rush basic attack ratio down. Spectral Smite cooldown down. Damage, base damage up slightly, but down in the early game. The crystal ratio is up. Damage per stack is up, or down in the early game, but up in the late game. And lifesteal per stack is gutted back to where he previously kind of was, with the heal crystal ratio going up. So, what do we make of that then? Cruel's early game sucks. They've made him a crystal ratios go up, and I don't even know if that makes any difference. With Aftershock kind of being nerfed in the last update. And the lifesteal per stack is down significantly. So no longer do you have Cruel that will just 2v1 on 5v5. Personally, I think this kills the Cruel, kind of. I still think Cruel will be good because his whole kit is good for certain things, but this definitely makes Cruel less viable overall. Probably makes him less powerful in 3v3 as well. It looks like they're balancing for both 3v3 and 5v5 this update, because Cruel wasn't that much of a problem in 5v5, but in 3v3 he was a monster. This definitely hurts Cruel in 3v3. Puts him back to where he was previously, or even worse than he was previously. Lance Impale, base damage up, weapon ratio down by 40%. Githian Wall damage down in the early game, the weapon ratio also down, but his combat roll cooldown is down in the early game. That feels bad for weapon power Lance mains, honestly, and I don't really think that change is absolutely necessary. Yeah, this is just a strict nerf to weapon power Lance. This is essentially saying, okay, have fun being the same as a captain, but we're just going to nerf your weapon power Lance a bit more. Yeah, that feels bad for a lot of weapon power Lance players, to be honest. Lorelei, empowered crystal bonus damage from that swell is down across the board. Wow, that's I mean, that makes her less oppressive, I guess. She was kind of hard to play against in lane sometimes. Fish food energy cost is down. The range is up across the board. Impact delay is up. The impact damage crystal ratio is up, and the stun duration is up. The empowered bonus. Oh, is this supposed? Oh, that's supposed to be a separate point. Empowered bonus no longer has reduced impact, increased stun duration. All right. So you no longer get the instant stun on Lorelei, ever. You no longer ever get the instant stun on Lorelei, and the impact delay has gone up. So you just have to be much better at aiming and predicting with your stun. But if you do hit a stun, you'll get a slightly increased stun duration, and the range is up before you overdrive it too, and the crystal ratio is up. I know that sucks because the instant stun was the only thing that made that ability good. That sucks, to be honest. Splashdown energy cost is down across the board. Oh, when you overdrive it, it goes to down. Okay, cool, whatever. Water wall energy cost is up. Barrier strength is up across the board, and the empowered barrier duration is up as well. So you definitely overdrive this for sure. I think you overdrive her ultimate, and you probably still overdrive her A. But that's a pretty decent thing to overdrive. If you're struggling with energy, overdriving her B could be a thing, but I don't think that many people struggle with energy. So yeah. Light ribbons on Maline. Energy cost is... no, energy cost is not 0 at overdrive, it's 35. Shadow Tendrils, energy cost is the same. Royal Amnesty B1 is the cooldown is down across the board. Wicked Escapade, the cooldown is up early game, but doesn't really make a difference as you get towards the late game. Enchanted Transformation, the cooldown is down again. So realistically, although this looks like a massive amount of nerfs, I would say that especially this right here, this is a buff to Maline. Overall. This is overall a buff to melee because this is the most important part here, the cooldown transformation delay. And the fact that you have your barrier on a constant 12-second cooldown. This energy nerf won't even affect you to the late game. At that point, you've probably got energy regeneration items anyway. Finn, quibble damage, base damage down in the early game but stays the same in the late game. Polite company damage is cut across the board, but the duration is also cut. And Force to Call cooldown is up. A nerf for Finn, for sure, across the board, but I still think Finn will be good. Especially with the changes to the movement river speed on 5v5, Finn's going to be, like, busted, I think. This is a pretty significant nerf, personally, right here. But overall, I still think Finn's going to be really good, especially with those river changes. Rhyme's movement speed is down. His Frostguard damage over time is up. This is his passive. The crystal ratio is up and the duration is up. So he's more incentivized to basic attack people now, especially with the good crystal ratio. His Winter Spire, energy is down. Impact damage is down, with the crystal ratio also going down. But the burst damage, so rewarded for placing it properly. The crystal ratio is up and the damage is up. The range is also nerfed across the board. Again, trying to make Rhyme more of that close range, melee busting mage. Chill Winds, which is his B, the cooldown is up. Down in the early game, up in the late game. The damage is up across down in the early game, up in the late game. The crystal ratio has been buffed and the root duration is up across the board until you overdrive it. Up in the early game, mid makes very little difference, and then slightly buffed in the late game. rewarding you for hitting this then, with the increased crystal ratio especially. Valkyrie, cooldown up, energy cost up, damage in the center is up, crystal ratio is up, damage at the edge is down, crystal ratio on the edge is down. The slow duration is 80% across the board, slow duration in the center is up, and stun duration is also up. Basically, what they've done with Rhyme is if you're good at hitting your abilities with a Rhyme, you are going to be rewarded. If you're bad at hitting your abilities with a Rhyme, you are going to suck. So it's a buff for good Rhyme players, but a nerf for bad Rhyme players. Rona's Berserker Fury, basic attack ratio up, wow, okay, and fortified health per second on Red Mist up as well. So that's actually giving her 90% of the weapon power that she builds, as well as having her passive attack speed. I'll have to see if that makes that much of a difference, but I think Rona could be in a good place. Silvernail Stake charge time up in the early game, same in the late game. Caustic Blessing no longer has a weapon power ratio. Bam! That is a massive nerf. That is a huge nerf to the trading potential for Silvernail in lane. This right here doesn't kill weapon power Silvernail because he's still really good as a basic attacker, and resetting that double shot is obviously powerful, but wow. Reducing the weapon power ratio on his Caustic Blessing to 0%, that's going to hurt Silvernail a lot. Wow. Especially his trading potential in lane. Okay, let's talk about Skye. Forward Barrage, damage per second weapon ratio up, crystal ratio up, slow ratio on the weapon power up, and the cap is up as well. Suri Strike cooldown down. Wow! Skye, she got a big buff. A pretty good buff to her Forward Barrage overall. Especially if you're a weapon power Skye player. That's awesome. So Skye, big buff. I think could be good both CP and weapon power. Still think she is fairly limited use on 5v5, CP especially, because she's all single target really, and she doesn't have too many AoE abilities, and she's kind of outclassed by other CP mages. But 3v3, this would be great for her. Yeah, Skye, great 3v3, probably pretty good weapon power 5v5. Taka, House of Kamuha, which is his heroic perk. Base damage up, weapon power ratio up, so trying to make weapon power Taka a bit more viable. Love to see if that actually has any impact. I don't know if it will, personally. Don't know if it will, but it's a little bit of a buff for Taka. Varia, Chain Lightning, default attack damage down, crystal ratio down, but the Chain Lightning damage is up with the crystal ratio going up. So the initial hit does less, but the chain damage does more. Alright, that's a pretty significant hit to her initial damage as well, but the chain damage does more, okay. So you have to be able to get both those basic attacks off, basically, the double-edged basic attack. Stormforged Spear, the impact damage is down, the crystal ratio is down, the chain damage is up with the crystal ratio chain damage up. Arc Recursion, dash distance is down until you overdrive it, so you kind of have to overdrive it now because that's a pretty significant nerf. Damn, that's insane. All about the AoE 5v5 mage now. She's not really good 1v1. Kind of sucks 1v1 actually. Yates, Wolfmore's damage is down in the early game but stays the same in the late game, and his overwhelmed cooldown is down as well. I would actually say a buff for Yates overall, because it really only takes one level in Wolfmore before it starts to do more damage. Yeah, a buff for Yates. Pretty decent buff for Yates, and he was already quite strong. Alternating current, crystal power down, attack speed up, and crystal ratio on those attacks down. Favoring the more attack speed orientated crystal power carries and not allowing you to just build this and get massive hitting basic attacks off. So people like Vox, CP Vox will love this. And CP Vox is already in a good space. So someone like CP Vox is going to love this because he didn't really get that much off the initial basic attack. Someone like Varia is going to hate this. Or I know Varia might actually like this. Let me think who would actually dislike this. Lorelei maybe? Maybe Lorelei would dislike this because of the changes to her basic attacks and her empowered basic attacks. But yeah, someone like Vox and maybe Varia will both really like this. Aegis, total cost up by 100, but you have 5 extra shield and armor. Okay, whatever. It's almost negligent, but always negligible even. So it's but it's a decent little buff. Bonesaw, armor pierce up to try and contend with tension bow, like that. Broken Myth builds out of Eclipse Prism and Piercing Shard, but the total cost is unchanged and the crystal power goes down. Essentially a massive nerf for Broken Myth. Also means that you can't build a Heavy Prism and build it into something else. So I don't. That change strikes me as weird, but a nerf for Broken Myth overall. Coat of Plates, total cost down, armor down. Crucible can no longer be used while stunned. Ouch. If you miss your first Crucible and then your team gets chain CC'd, you can't do anything about it if you're the only one with a Crucible on your team. That sucks. Fountain of Renewal builds out of Lifespring and War Mail now, so not out of Kinetic Shield. And it gives you armor, but the shield is also reduced. So it's more of a across-the-board defense item, which is nice. I do like that. I prefer that change. Halcyon Chargers move speed up. Journey Boots move speed up. Wow. Again, like I said, boots are just good this update. Like tier 2, tier 3 boots, priority. If you weren't building Halcyon Chargers as a second item on a mage, now you probably should be. Kinetic Shield, cost down, but so same as the thingy. Metal Jacket cost down with the 5 armor method. I think technically I would say that's a decent buff to Metal Jacket because that's 200 gold for just 5 armor. That's almost nothing. Poison Shiv, weapon power up, attack speed up by 10, and the total cost is up by 250. Hey, Poison Shiv is back, baby. Just in time for weapon power Blackfeather if you don't want to go for Serpent's Mask. So yeah, Poison Shiv, this will make those Poison Shiv based weapon power carries a bit stronger as well. That's a decent buff to Poison Shiv. Pulse Weave, total cost down, and a new passive also deals 50% of the burst damage per second to nearby enemies while available. That's just a buff to Pulse Weave. Did Pulse Weave need a buff? You tell me. I don't think so. Just a good item. Pulse Weave's just a great item. Unless they removed a passive, but I don't think they did. Reflex Block no longer can be used while stunned. Ouch. Okay, but the active barrier is up in the late game. Celestial Shroud builds out of Kinetic Shield. Total cost 2,200. Shield 95. Passive grants immunity to abilities and damaging debuffs. Disabled for 35 seconds shortly after negating ability damage. I'm wondering if there is like a grace period of the immunity. Is it 1 second? Like, do you get 1 second of immunity if you get hit by an ability, or does it just block the first ability hit? It doesn't tell me here. I need to do some testing. If it's the first ability hit, it's not a great item. If it gives you 1 second of immunity across multiple threats, that's great. Shiver Steel's active removed. Basic attacks now apply a slow based on your melee and range for 1 second. Max health is up, attack speed is down, but the total cost is up as well. It just makes Shiver Steel easier to use for people who aren't super tuned on to using activatable items. People who are really good at using Shiver Steel in the right scenario probably will just see this as a net nerf. But for people who weren't used to using actives, this is probably better for a lot of players. Slumbering Husk now built out of coated plates and Kinetic Shield. Total cost is down. Armor is up and shield is down to be even with the same passive. Slumbering Husk is still good. I love the fact that it's more a balanced defensive item now as well. It's still good. It's still going to provide you that shield, and against someone like Magnus, for instance, it's going to be like a direct counter to him, so it will still have its place. Energy recharge up on Stormcrown. Total cost up as well. Cooldown reduction up, but the true damage is up, but the effectiveness of heroes and structures is down, and the passive cooldown is also down. So again, more burst orientated true damage, but the effectiveness on heroes and structures is down to compensate, and the passive cooldown is also up, so you can't use it as often. So this true damage nerf is really just I would say a DPS. This is just a DPS change because the passive cooldown has gone up. But overall, a decent change to Stormcrown makes it more viable, especially with the energy and the cooldown reduction recharge changes. Stormguard banner just to reflect that. Teleport boots move speed up. Travel boots move speed up. War mail total cost down, and true. So we talked about the move speed. All right, it's everything. I think from what we've learned from this update, massive changes to the heroes. Boots are awesome. Lots of defensive balances across the board to make items more sort of unique versus. Or sorry, better versus both damage types, which is nice. Yeah, interesting update. Lots of changes. Tell me what you think, and I will see you soon.